I'm here in Ohio. It's springtime, and springtime means that I'm either hiking or I'm thinking about hiking. So one thing I'll do is just rewatch these 3 Pacific Crest Trail documentaries over and over again. And they're from 3 different eras, and they all have a different feel, so I thought it'd be fun to watch them and give my thoughts on each one. So, doing this in chronological order, first is Walking the West. Walking the West is a documentary about thru hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. It was filmed in 1997 by a thru hiker named Miles, who also worked in video production, so even though it has the visual aesthetic of a 90s home movie, the quality remains really high because the good pacing and the storytelling, it's really good at conveying a lot of the experiences you have on a thru hike, and it has great characters with Miles' sidekick Dale and all the other thru hikers that they meet along the way.
Basically, but we're having the time of our lives, yeah.
The movie begins with Miles and Dale at home in San Francisco. I love that this segment's included because it's such a special time where you're doing your final preparations and observing your home in a new way, and it's surreal and it's exciting, and I haven't really seen any other documentaries that capture this part of every hike.
It's incredible, man. Can't believe it.
And soon after starting their hike, they face all the classic issues: foot pain, heat, and there's a really funny rattlesnake scene.
That was a lot of rattles. That's older.
The movie shows both the challenges and the rewards of a thru hike, and the soundtrack's effective. While sometimes being a bit cheesy, it's always fun and engaging, and they captured many precious moments.
Muesli and mosquitoes, sort of an M&Ms, if you will.
This movie's lighthearted, it's introspective, it's honest, realistic.
I'm gonna send those guys a letter, man.
This documentary being filmed in 1997 means that now it's this time capsule. When I first found out about thru hiking in 2011, this is what brought me into that world and showed me what it was. And so it evokes a lot of nostalgia for me, not only for this movie, but also for the trail of old and for my beginner's mind. I give it a 9 out of 10. The second movie is Tell It on the Mountain. It was filmed in 2006, but it didn't come out until 2015. In the movie, you follow quite a few different characters. There's this German couple who have a great attitude, but the man gets injured pretty early on, so they end up spending a lot of time with doctors and hobbling around. So it's kind of a bummer because you keep checking in and it's not really getting any better. There's also another European guy. He's hiking solo, and he tends to express the internal or ethereal side of thru hiking. You don't really see much of his trail experience. He's mostly just shown reflecting. And then there's Jackalope and Eagle Eye, and yeah, there's just never a dull moment. I laugh at most of their scenes, but sometimes they're just a little too much. They ham it up for the camera, which is kind of funny, but gets a little old sometimes. And then you also get to see Donna Softly. Donna Softly is amazing. I mean, she ran Hiker Heaven for decades, and she heads out on a section hike in the High Sierra, which is great to see, but she's very much a tertiary character in this movie. Her story isn't really fleshed out in any meaningful way. What makes this documentary special for me is its inclusion of Billy Goat and Scott Williamson, both legends on the Pacific Crest Trail. In the movie, Scott Williamson is doing his second yo-yo of the PCT, hiking from Mexico to Canada and back down to Mexico. He carried a camera for this movie, and the footage he gets and his general attitude, I just love. And I think this warrants an entire documentary of its own. And Billy Goat, he just comes off like an idealized John Muir. He just loves being on the trail in a way that is only matched by Scott Williamson. They're very much kindred spirits, and they both have so much experience and wisdom of the PCT. I've actually put together an edit primarily featuring them too.
Brought you some goodies. I know you don't want to just have conversation. I know man likes to eat. There's some cantaloupe.
When I put this movie on, I really just want to see Scott Williamson and Billy Goat. There's a good rhythm at the start of the movie with a nice introduction to the trail, through hiking, and the characters, but then somewhere in the High Sierra, my enjoyment of this movie falls off. The music choices are confusing, and the pacing stumbles. Keeping up with all the different characters feels disjointed, and the lack of cohesion makes the movie feel even longer than the 2-hour runtime, which I find to be the biggest fault in this movie. The other two movies featured in this video feel like labors of love by thru hikers, and while this movie is generally professionally made, it comes across more as an unpassionate PBS program. There's some sloppiness and questionable creative choices, like there's scenes with cross dissolves between nearly identical shots, and there's some pretty corny music that was made for the movie, but the lyrics are really on the nose and the tone doesn't really fit a lot of the time, and they include this circle effect, like when Jackalope and Eagle Eye's dog dies, which feels unearned and goofy given that there's no previous mention of the dog. In conclusion, I love watching Scott Williamson and Billy Goat in 2006, and there are many makings of a great movie here, but the execution just falls short for me. Rather than watching the released version, I tend to watch my own fan edit, and rewatching the real version to make this review, it was a little hard to get through. I give it a 5 out of 10. The last documentary I'll be covering is Do More With Less. It was filmed in 2013 and made by two thru hikers. I love the visuals and the sound of this movie. They carried a tripod with them and they locked off a lot of beautifully composed shots. In addition to the landscapes, they have some creative clips with stop motion and time-lapse, and some candid scenes with hikers. The sound of the movie is also good. They use both ambient trail sounds and music that I personally enjoy to pace the movie and direct the tone of each scene. Hearing the opening chord swell and the first few songs gets me really excited for thru hiking season. The story consists mostly of sit-down interviews with thru hikers. In one, a young man is in the middle of eating a whole watermelon on his lap with a spoon, and I really like the older man who's just like, "Do it." That guy's awesome. Rocket Llama is a delight.
Oh my god, that's a cool tree.
And the inclusion of Terry Anderson and the Dinsmores is wonderful too. There are really just too many people to mention, and although they're all just being interviewed, there's still a lot of genuine moments, and you can really feel the thru-hikeriness of them coming through despite just hanging out and being interviewed. But there's no main character nor guiding story. The movie doesn't really capture much happening, and while there may be some memorable moments from the interviews, it's not really the same thing as memorable experiences from the hike. Also, because each hiker is interviewed only once, there's no transformation or progression of any character. But these are intentional choices. The movie's subtitled A Conversation About the Pacific Crest Trail, so the result is in line with their vision, but that's not necessarily what makes for a movie with a clear storyline. For someone who's interested in thru hiking the PCT, this is a great movie to watch because it consolidates a lot of topics that are common to thru hikers and the thru hiking experience. One thing this movie reminds me of that I often forget is just when I'm hiking and I find myself feeling very confident and happy, and there's just something that clicks where I feel physically very strong and mentally really well. And this movie reminds me of that. It really translates that emotional side of the trail to me. I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I really love all these movies, and I watch them multiple times every spring. And if you've seen them and you have any thoughts about them, let me know. If there's any movies that I should be watching instead of these, also let me know that. So thanks for watching. I hope you check these movies out. I'm going to put some links down in the description for how to watch them. And yeah. That's it.